What is up, you guys? Ryan Brewer back here, the host of Michael Myers Reacts, and here we are, the official concept video. I am so excited. As you guys know already, since you've seen it, it is about Freddy Krueger, and the film is called Massacre on Elm Street, and you'll find out later on when I get into the actual script why it's called Massacre on Elm Street. Very excited to let you guys hear this. I think it's an amazing idea to bring Freddy Krueger back to the big screen. Woo! This is going to be exciting. Grab some snacks, get some drinks, because we're going to be here for a little while. So here we go, the opening scene. A female in a dream, walking, very peaceful, nothing going on. She's picking flowers, she's walking along the sidewalk. Blue skies, just very, very peaceful. She continues walking for a while, and then she sees this factory. She decides to go inside this factory to take a look around. She's walking around in this factory, and she doesn't see anyone, so she starts to get curious where are all the workers at that work at this factory. So she's walking around this big factory for a little while, and then she ends up in a boiler room. And we all know what a boiler room means in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. So she's in this boiler room, still wondering where everybody is at. And then the girl hears a screech, and it startles her. She turns around, and she sees this man in the shadows, a silhouette of a man with a hat in his hand behind his back. The woman then asks the man for his name, and the man replies with Fred. And we all know that that's obviously going to be Freddy Krueger. And then she goes, well, Fred, where is everybody at? Where's all the workers? And Fred replies with, they're all dead. And it freaks the girl out a little bit. She begins to just look at the man and kind of back up a little bit. And Fred begins to walk out of the shadows. This time he's revealing the glove and his face and everything. It's the Freddy Krueger we know, the Christmas sweater, the fedora, everything, the glove. The woman sees Fred and just screams in terror. She's so scared of how Fred looks. She's terrified. I mean, completely terrified. The girl begins to run. She's running as fast as she can. She's screaming. She's trying to get back to where how she got in. Fred begins to run after her and chasing her. The girl ends up tripping over something in the boiler room, which we all know how tripping goes in a horror movie. She trips over something in the boiler room, and she turns around, and Fred is still chasing her, and then the girl just kicks Fred, and Fred falls back. That's how hard she kicked him. As we know with that scene, that this character is going to be a fighter. She's not just going to let Fred get her. Fred gets back up, and she gets back up, and she starts to run, but Fred grabs her, and then she grabs Fred back, and then all of a sudden, she wakes up. So the girl wakes up screaming, sweating from her bad dream, and her mom comes into the room to see what's wrong with her. Now, her mom is an older lady, which I'll explain a little later on in the video why she's kind of older. I'm not saying that she's an old lady because she has it's not a child. I would say she's probably a teenager, maybe 18, 17, but the mom is a little bit older. And like I said, I'll explain a little later why she's a little older. So the mom's like, what's wrong? What happened? And, the daughter's like, oh, I had a really bad nightmare. This guy with this burnt face was chasing me, and it just felt so real. And the mom just kind of stands there for a second with a blank expression on her face. She knows something that her daughter doesn't know, which that'll also come into play later on in this. And, the daughter's like, Mom, what's wrong? Are you okay? And she's like, honey, just go back to sleep. Get some rest. It was just a bad dream. You'll be okay. So the mom leaves the room, and the daughter is just laying in bed, looking up at the ceiling, thinking about the bad dream she just had. And then all of a sudden, she hears another screech. And this time, she knows she's not asleep. And she thinks that she heard it from under her bed. So she checks under her bed, and she doesn't see anything under there. And obviously, she's kind of confused because she heard this screech come from under her bed. So she gets up from looking under her bed, and she realizes that one of her bedroom window one of her bedroom windows are open, and she doesn't know why. She knows she didn't open it. She just knows that it was closed and now it is open. And then that is when we go into a cutscene. So now we're at a police station with a couple of cops talking, and one cop just gets off of the phone, and he tells one of his officers that, hey, I just got off the phone, and we have a break-in on Elm Street. Now we know that this girl and her mother lives on Elm Street, which we probably should have known since Freddy was, in her bad dream or nightmare. So the cops tell the lady, hey, we'll be over, we're going to go check it out. So the cops arrive at the mother and daughter's house. The mother comes outside and she goes, my daughter's bedroom window was open and we believe someone broke in. And the cops say, does your daughter have a description or anything like that? And the mother says no, her daughter didn't tell her anything. So the cops say, can we go in and check out the house? So the cops are looking around the house and they go into the bedroom and they see the window that is open. They ask the mother and the daughter, hey, is anything missing? And they're like, no, nothing is missing. And they see that it couldn't have been a break-in because the window wasn't broke, nothing like that. And they said most likely someone came in. They didn't break in, but they broke out. And the mother's confused, and so is the daughter, like, what are you guys talking about? There's no way that someone was in here without us knowing. So the cops and the mother and daughter go back outside to talk for a little more, and the cops are about to leave, and their neighbor comes over and asks the mother, hey, what's going on? And the mother goes, nothing's going on, don't worry about it. So the mother and the daughter go back in the house, the neighbor goes back to her home, and she's on the phone, and she's talking to her friend, the neighbor is, and she's like, well, my neighbor just had something going on, but she won't tell me what it is. She goes, I think it was a break-in because it sounded like they were talking about a break-in when I was coming over toward her house. So the neighbor opens her door up, and there's Fred. Freddy Krueger is standing in her doorway. She opens the door up to her own house that is next door to the mother and daughter's house. She sees Fred, burnt face, everything, and she's standing there in complete shock. And Fred takes his first two finger knives and just jabs it through her eyes. And that's the first kill of the movie. That is graphic, too. That is the first kill of the movie. He takes his two finger knives, jabs her through the eyes. She collapses. Freddy drags her in to her own house. And he does kind of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing. He takes the door and slams it. And that's when we go into another cutscene. Now we're inside the mother and daughter's house again. And the mother's talking to her daughter about what just happened, about this break-in. And the mother tells her daughter, I kind of feel bad about, making the neighbor go home. I should have just told her what was going on. I felt rude. I think I'm going to go over there and apologize. And the daughter's like, okay. So the mother walks over to the neighbor's house, and the door's closed. If you remember, Fred just slammed the door. So the door's closed, and, the mother's knocking on the door. Nobody answers, so the mother checks the doorknob, and the door's unlocked. She opens it slowly. She yells in there. She goes, hey, neighbor, you home? Whatever. Because she thought maybe the neighbor could have left or whatever. So she walks inside the house trying to find her neighbor, and she ends up to the upstairs bedroom, and she finds her neighbor laying on the bed completely covered up. And she's like, well, maybe she just went to sleep. So the mother walks up to her on the bed, and she tries to wake her up. She's like, hey, hey, it's your neighbor. And no response. So the mother moves the blanket from over the neighbor's face, and she sees that both her eyeballs are out of the socket and gone, and blood tears on the side of her face, really graphic stuff. Pillows bloody, there's no eyes or nothing. So the mother's screaming and freaking out, and she runs out of the house, runs back to her house, and tells her daughter, hey, our neighbor is dead. And at this point, the daughter thinks she knows what's going on. She heard the screech from under her bed. Her window was open. She had this really extreme idea in her head. She goes, maybe I brought Fred into our world. Maybe he is here. She's thinking this in her head, not out loud. So the mother's on the phone calling the police. She's like, hey, I need the police to come back. Our neighbor's dead, whatever. And the daughter is just kind of sitting there, just blank expression, just like her mother was when she told her that she saw this guy with a burnt face and everything like that. She's sitting there with a blank expression. The mom gets off the phone. She asks her daughter, she goes, "Honey, what is wrong? Why are you just sitting there and not freaking out? Our neighbor is dead." And the daughter just goes, "Mom, it's Fred." And the mom stops as well and looks at her and she goes, "How do you know that name?" Kind of like in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. She's like, "How do you know that name?" She goes, "Mom, he was in my dream and I think I brought him into our world." And then the mom goes, "No, he's dead. The person you were talking about is dead. Us parents from Elm Street burnt this guy named Fred." And then she's sitting there and she's like, "No, he's not dead. He came back as something else." Kind of like the original Nightmare. So we're kind of getting a throwback to the original film. The mom is at the point where she's like, "This is impossible. Nobody from your bad dream or nightmare could come out into the real world." So police end up showing up, swarming the Elm Street block. I mean, woo, woo, just cops everywhere. And they knock on the mother and daughter's house again. And some of the cops knock on her door and some of the cops go into the neighbor's house. The cops end up finding the dead body. A couple of the not cops, they call in coroner, everything like that. They're talking to the mother and daughter. Well, mostly the mother. They're like, "What happened?" She goes, "I went to my neighbor's house, found her dead." So the coroner arrives on scene. They take the body out of there, and one cop stays in. All the cops and the mother and daughter, everyone's outside. The coroner's outside taking the body. One cop stays in the house, and from the closet in the neighbor's bedroom, he hears a really long screech, like from the closet, and the doors are closed. So the cop's like, somebody's in this house. So he draws his gun, and he opens the closet door. And when he opens the closet door, he sees Fred in there. Just in the corner, Fred's just standing there with his glove, blood on the first two finger knives. So he goes, "Sir, you need to get out or you're going to get shot." So Fred is just standing there looking at him. And Fred, he's just looking at him. He's doing the freakiest thing ever. He's just looking at him. And the cop's like, "Sir, you need to get out now or I'm going to fire." So then Fred jolts towards the officer. The officer fires but misses Fred. And Fred takes one of his finger knives and slices the cop's jugular. Blood's gushing out of his neck. He collapses and falls dead. Then it goes to sort of a cutscene of everybody who left after that one officer stayed up there. All the cops and everything outside hear the gunshot. So a couple of the cops run upstairs to see what's going on. And they go up there to find the officer's dead body, blood everywhere. So the second kill was pretty close to the first kill. The first two kills in the movie's very close together. And at this point, the massacre has begun. So that's pretty much the beginning of the film. Now we're about to get into the climax of the film. The sheriff station or police station are getting calls after calls about people dying on Elm Street. Fred is literally just picking people off one by one. He's taking a lot of people out on Elm Street, which, if the film was picked up by like New Line Cinema or Warner Brothers, whoever is talking about the script would find out how this was shot and how the deaths would go. But pretty much the basics is Freddy is picking off people on Elm Street. The sheriff and police station are getting calls. They're calling the state police. And then one of the sheriffs say, "I wish we knew who is doing this so we can stop this." And this is when the mother's daughter comes and says, "I think I know who it is." And the officer or sheriff's like, "Well, who is it? Tell us who it is." And she goes, "It's Fred." And he goes, "Who's Fred? Who are you talking about?" And the mother kind of knows. And the daughter says, "It's this guy with a really burnt face. He's here. He was from my dream. He's here killing people." And the officer goes, "Are you talking about Freddy Krueger?" And the mom's kind of just standing back, not getting into it. And the officer tells the daughter that he got killed years ago. These people burnt him alive. And she goes, "No, I'm telling you, he came back as something else. He's still here, and he is killing people on Elm Street." And this is where the officer kind of does and don't believe her at the same time. So he calls in and he's like, "Look out for a guy who might have a burnt face or whatever, and he's asking her, what's his description. She tells him, the red and green Christmas sweater and the fedora. He says all that over the radio. So they're looking for Fred. They got a search party and everything. People are getting killed on Elm Street. They're getting call after call. So one of the sheriffs finally hears a scream from one of the houses on Elm Street. He rushes in there as fast as he can. The door's locked. He kicks the door down. He goes, "Hello, does anybody need help?" And he's hearing screams. He's looking around. He's trying to find it. And this time, he sees this girl standing there with blood on her and scratches like along her chest. And he's like, "What happened? What happened to you?" And she says, "Some guy with this glove and this fedora and this sweater cut me." And at this point, this is where the officer knows that, hey, this is real. It's going down. Freddy Krueger isn't dead. He's alive. He's something else. Something is going down. So at this point, they got cops in almost at every single Elm Street house. And one of the cops gets eyes on Freddy. Freddy ends up walking out on the street of Elm Street. He's in the street. All the cops draw their guns. And the one cop who knows that Freddy is actually alive is the first one up there. He points a gun at him, and he asks him, "What are you?" And Freddy says this, "The devil." He's straight up, that's what he says. He says he's the devil. And the cops tell him, they say, "If you keep moving, we're going to unload on you." Freddy keeps walking. He's got his glove. You can see the glove. He's ready to attack. And they're like, "You take one step closer, we're going to take fire at you." And then he keeps walking, and then the screen goes black. And you just hear cops unloading on Freddy. I mean, doom, 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 just unloading on Freddy Krueger. And then we go back to a scene with all the cops where they were, but you don't see Freddy this time. You wonder where Freddy is. And the camera kind of zooms down to Freddy on the road, completely shot up, laying there. Pretty much the audience thinks he's dead at this point, but he's not actually dead. Cops roll up on him. They get closer to him. They check him out. And the one cop who gets closer to him actually gets grabbed. Freddy grabs one of the officers and holds him hostage. He's got one of his finger knives up to the guy's throat, and he's like, "If you come any closer, I'll kill him." So the cops are backing up. They're like, "Don't do anything, don't do anything." And Freddy's holding hostage because Freddy don't have his powers. You got to remember, he's not in the dream world no more. He's in the real world. So he doesn't have his powers anymore. He's got this officer, and they're like, "If you kill him, we are going to shoot you." And he's like, "If you come any closer, I'm going to kill him." So Freddy takes this cop hostage, and he goes inside of one of the Elm Street houses. So the cops know where Freddy are. They got this house surrounded by police, but they don't want to move in because they don't want Freddy to kill this officer. This is the lead sergeant of the police force and everything, so they don't want him dead. The mother and daughter are still out there, and the daughter says, "Let me stop this." And the cop says, "We can't risk you going in there." She goes, "I brought him into this world. Let me take him out," which I think is a pretty cool line. So the cop's like, "All right, well, I'm going in with you." And she goes, "No, I need to go in by myself." So she ends up going inside of the house, saying Fred's name. She's like, "Fred, get out here. If you want somebody, take me." And her plan is to somehow take Freddy and put him back into the dream world and get him out of the real world. So Fred hears it, and he's still got this cop hostage with the finger knife up to his throat. And the cop's like, "Don't come any closer. You don't want anything to happen." And she goes, "I'm going to help you. I'm going to stop this." And she goes, "Fred, it's me you want. I am the last kid on Elm Street ever. You've killed all the others. Kill me." She's the last one. She's the last child from Elm Street. So Fred drops the cop, and the cop don't have his weapon. Freddy took his gun or whatever. So the cop's sitting there on the floor seeing what's about to happen. So Freddy's walking toward the girl once again, and this time she grabs Freddy first. He gets real close. She grabs Freddy, and then all of a sudden she injects herself with this stuff to make her go to sleep. And when she falls asleep, she completely passes out instantly. And as she's falling, Freddy falls too because her body weight brings Freddy down. And in her dream, she brings Freddy back into the dream world. She's in her head, she brought Freddy back to the dream world. Somehow she got him back. She brought him in and she got him back into the dream world. So now Freddy and this girl is back into the dream world. And that's pretty much the climax scene. Now we're about to get into the end scene. So now we're in the end scene where Freddy and the girl is in the dream world, and this is where we kind of get a little jump scare. She's in the dream world, but she doesn't exactly see Freddy right away. So she's walking around in the boiler room again, where she was in the beginning of the film. She's walking around in the boiler room, and then we get this jump scare. All of a sudden, Freddy just jumps down in front of her and just stabs her in the throat. I mean, stabs her with the middle tooth. He just jabs her right here. I mean, everything, blood and everything. And then in the real world, the cops are rushing in after that. That cop called in. He's like, we need somebody. She's bleeding. And they find her with blood on her neck. And at this point, the mother's breaking down crying, and she knows her daughter is dead. But this girl sacrificed herself to save Elm Street because there was innocent people dying. Some of those people who lived on Elm Street wasn't even involved in burning Freddy. So she pretty much sacrificed herself to save people on Elm Street. And then time goes on. We go to a little bit of a time skip, and obviously Freddy's not dead, nothing like that. The time skip, we go into a time skip, and she's kind of like the hero of Elm Street. She's got a statue or something, or, you know, I don't know, something that makes her a hero. Maybe her mother got a medal for her daughter. Something that makes her a hero. So people on Elm Street know this girl's name, and they know that she's a hero for saving Elm Street. And some of these cops are kind of traumatized from what happened. The mother is definitely traumatized from losing her daughter. So that's pretty much how the movie ends. The hero ends up dying. So that is my concept video for Massacre on Elm Street. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys thought of my idea to bring Freddy back to the big screen. If you enjoyed my concept video / script, leave a like, subscribe. It'd be much appreciated. And I may do some more of these in the future. This was really fun. I might do some more scripts in the future. I didn't get super detailed with this one, but I try to give you guys an idea of kind of how the story would go. Gave you guys a little bit of some deaths. I think it's kind of cool, though, that, you know, the daughter's kind of the final girl, but not really, because she ends up dying. So I thought that was kind of a twist. I don't know. I try to do something different. But if you guys did like it, leave a like, subscribe. Be much appreciated. And I will see you guys on the next video.